Hello everybody, this is Chris with Overclockers Club. Today I've got something cool from TerraMaster. So this is the new D5-300 from TerraMaster. It looks like one of their NAS units, network attached storage, but it's actually not. Well, I should say not quite. This is actually a standalone unit. And we'll get it out of the box and see what it looks like. All right, so there's the back of it, and there's the front. So what this is really for, and you can store a ton of data on it, but it's actually more of a standalone array of hard drives, and you can transport this between systems and move data back and forth. So it's very convenient. And on the back, it just has a single power port and then a USB Type-C for USB 3.1 speeds back there on the back. So it's really like one giant external hard drive, except you have an array of disks acting sort of like one big disk. So you would put your hard drives in here. Each one of these pops out. Mount your hard drive here in this tray. There's some fasteners that secure it. And then slide the hard drive in, and I'll do all that here a little later. Lock it in place, and now we'll go ahead and open the hardware kit. I'll set it on top there, and you can see all of the stuff that's included. So in the little box here, there is a USB connector to go to your standard USB, and then the other end here goes to the back of the unit. The Type-C end connector. It comes with a little screwdriver, which is nice. Some stickers to label your hard drives so you know what's what. Warranty information. It looks like a quick start guide here, maybe. Oh, okay, so it's just directing you back to the TerraMaster website to get all of your startup information, and I'll show that here in a little bit. Some extra little rubber grommets there for securing hard drives. A couple of rubber pads. See if I can figure out where those go. Screws and more screws to secure hard drives to the hard drive trays, and of course a power supply. And real quick, that's a pretty good brick there. That's a let's see, 12 volt, okay, 7.5 amp, so that's putting out a fair amount of current. But of course, when you're running 5 hard drives, up to 5, plus the controls, that's going to draw some power. So a unit like this is very useful if you have a lot of data on one computer, or you do a lot of photo editing, video editing. You can connect it to one computer and then basically pick this up, move it to another computer and attach to that one and move data back and forth. The good thing is your data is safe and secure on this unit, in this unit, and when you have it unplugged and it's sitting idle, then it's your data is basically safe. It's not on the network. So that's a good thing if you really want to securely store your data. And when you set up a RAID array, you want to use the same size disk, and ideally from the same manufacturer. And I'll be using 5 1 terabyte Western Digital black drives. So I'll have, each one of these will have a single terabyte drive. And the way RAID 5 works is that your data is striped, little chunks of it across each one of the 5 drives, followed by a little bit of parity information across each one of the 5 drives. So that if any one of these drives were to die on you, you can just pull that drive out, replace it with the same size drive, and when you put that new empty drive in, the parity information that is stored on the remaining drives is used to rebuild the data that was stored on the drive that was replaced. So that's roughly how your RAID 5 works. So again, to clarify, in the example here of using 5 single terabyte drives, your equivalent storage will be 4 terabytes with 1 terabyte that's used for parity. And the same ratio is if you have 3 terabyte drives or 4 terabyte drives across the whole array. You still are using basically the equivalent of one of those drives to store your parity information. And this unit supports multiple RAID modes. So you've got RAID 0, 1, 5, 10, clone, JBOD, which is just a bunch of disks, and single disk mode. My personal favorite, especially on a unit this size, is RAID 5, so that's what we'll be doing today. And the little graphic here on the TerraMaster website sort of shows it, so you can see your data is striped across multiple drives, and there's a little bit of parity that is on each one of the drives. Now this here is just 4 drives, but I'll be using 5. And it shows that you can store up to 90 terabytes if you use 18 terabyte drives, and those are very expensive, at least for now they are. And let's see, the speeds here it's showing up to 220 megabytes a second, read and write. However, they're talking about using Seagate IronWolf 4 terabyte in RAID 0. So first of all, we won't be running in RAID 0, and I don't have enough of the Seagate IronWolf 4 terabyte drives to populate all of these. That's why I'll be using the Western Digital black 1 terabyte drives. I'm almost ready to get the hard drives into the bays and get the unit fired up. But before I do that, there's an important step. So you need to go to the TerraMaster website. You want to click support, and you want to come down here to download, and then you select your item. This is a direct attached storage. Then you want to select, this is a 5 bay, and the D5-300 comes up, and you click start. Now there are 2 things you can do. You can download documentation, or you can do software, and we need the software. And this is where you get the software that basically looks for the device and helps you get it configured. But you definitely need this software here from the download page. And here's something I do. Before I put the drives in the trays, I go ahead and mark them, since they're all the same drives, if I ever have them out. And they don't have to be in order, but I just mark them so I know what drive is what. Take a little silver Sharpie. And I put them in order also of the age. This one here is the oldest. It's just a few months older than these other 4. These all have the same date code. Again, absolutely not necessary, just a little OCD on my part. Now I have the power turned on, and these little lights sort of flashed sequentially there, I guess, as the hard drives are coming online. And the user guide does say that if you have any of these disks that you install that have previous data on them, and I had these just plugged into my computer as spare drives, that they may show up and they will be assigned drive letters just like a regular drive. And that's what it did. But it says if you're going to start a RAID or create a RAID, you really want to start with fresh disks, because it may not recognize disks that already have data, but it does seem to show all of the disks. So what I'll do now is go ahead and I'll try to create a RAID. I'm going to try to create a RAID 5 using all these disks, so we'll see what happens here in a moment. And I have, let's see, RAID 5 selected. So after you select RAID 5, select all my disks, and it's probably going to give me a message about deleting or losing all data on the disks after the RAID is started. So you can see there's the capacity. So it shows the members of the RAID level, and the capacity after the RAID is created. So I have 5 1 terabyte disks. I estimated that I would have 4 terabytes, but it's actually about 3.7 available. And let's hit the apply. Yeah, if you create a new RAID, all volumes of data will be destroyed or deleted. You want to continue, confirm. Okay, so we'll see how long that takes. RAID successful. Oh, that was fast. I figured it would take quite a while. Okay, now I have to initialize it. And the way to initialize a new disk, you do that through Windows. You come down here, you right click on the Windows icon. You want disk management, And this window comes up, and right away it says, hey, there's a new disk here to initialize. You don't want MBR, you want GPT. So if we hit OK, and let me scroll down, there should be, there we go, 3.725 gigabytes unallocated. So now we want to do a new simple volume, and it will assign a drive letter. That's fine. Format the volume, that's fine. And give it a moment. And there you have it. There is my new volume. It should treat it as one big disk. And back to the RAID manager, again you can see all of the disks and the capacity of all the disks. Here's where you create or delete the RAID if you ever need to do that. There's a log that shows when the RAID was created, and then under settings it looks like you can come in here. Let's see, yeah, you can come in here and update the firmware after you download it from the TerraMaster website. I checked and it looks like the firmware that's in here is all that's available. Okay, so I'm looking at some copy speeds going from one of my other TNAS units, the F2-422, which is off to the side, but the data rates that it's moving through the network and over to this D5-300, and it looks like it sort of varies. The maximum I've seen is right around 100 megabytes a second, a little over 106. So we'll sort of watch that. The next thing I'll do is I'll actually put some data on a solid state drive that's on my test system motherboard and transfer that over to the D5-300 and look at those transfer speeds. Now, the data that I'm moving right here now consists of all kinds of different files, video clips, pictures, stuff like that, of all different sizes. So that's why you're seeing the speeds there sort of jump up and down as it hits different sizes of data blocks. And if you look down there, you see the hard drive lights all blinking while the data is being copied and striped across all 5 of the drives, along with the corresponding parity information. As far as fan noise goes, if I get my head right down there next to the fans, yeah, you can sort of hear them, but they're not loud at all. And this does use a smart fan mode to control the fan speed. So when things are cool, the fans don't need to run as fast. And if you build up a little temperature, a little heat in there, then the fans will run at a higher RPM. And you can see the speed here is really pretty consistent. It varies a little, but you can see the overall range of speed there to the left in the green. And here I'm moving a 16 gigabyte file from another TerraMaster NAS unit. It's the F2-210, and you can see it's a very consistent 40 to 45 megabytes a second. And that is one large image file from a hard drive backup. Now I'm copying data from the D5-300 directly over to the solid state drive, this solid state drive right here, on my test system. So let's look at some of those speeds. You can see again, fairly consistent, much higher read speeds. And that's pretty close to the advertised read speed. And now I'm going from the solid state drive on my test system directly to the D5-300. So you can see those speeds. And those are the write speeds to the D5-300. So you can see they vary a little bit. But again, we're moving all kinds of different files, pictures, movies. So the speed varies a fair amount there. But it looks like it maxes out close to 200. And now what I'll do is move some large single contiguous files and see what kind of speeds I get. And here's one large single movie file, and that's pretty good. Yeah, it's a little faster than I was expecting. And again, I'm writing here from my solid state drive on the test system to the D5-300. So this is just one really large, I think it's close to 90 gigabytes. It's an image file from a hard drive backup. And again, we're seeing some speeds that are right there with the advertised write speeds. So I would say reading and writing, even though I'm not using the hard drives that they showed as being the Iron Wolf 4 terabytes in RAID 0, I am using Western Digital Black 1 terabyte drives in RAID 5, and I'm pretty much seeing the higher write speeds, read and write, actually. And now I'm using Macrium Reflect to do a quick system backup. So it's dumping the image onto the D5-300, and the rate, transfer rate there is about 1.4 gigabits per second. Now when it comes time to remove this from your system or eject it, you want to do it properly. Very important with this particular device. So you treat it like any USB device and you use the eject over here. And I know I don't always do it myself, but anytime you have flash drives, you're even supposed to do it this way. But you hit the little icon and that brings up, since this is the only thing I really have plugged in, this is the eject TDAS. Hit that and you give it a few moments there and it pretty much goes offline very quickly. And now it's safe to unplug. So after I powered it down, I moved it over here, plugged it into my other test system, and it recognized it immediately just as any USB drive. So I would say moving it from computer to computer, as expected, is no problem. So I just moved it back over to my main test system. I tell you, when you eject it, I mean, it powers down right now. At least it has for me. And there's the bottom of the unit, so you can see it's well ventilated. And these little extra, look like feet there, well, they're extra feet in case, I guess, you lose one. They give you a couple extra. That's nice. And the little feet there just keep it raised off the floor or the tabletop enough that you can get some fresh air to be drawn in from the bottom. Of course, there are all kinds of little openings here in the front and along the bottom here where fresh air can be drawn in and it is exhausted or pushed out the back. And for anyone curious as to what's going on the inside, I popped it out of the shell here. There's the back with the fans connected. But really they're just two circuit boards, one there and then one that sort of plugs in perpendicularly here. And that's about all there is to it. Another thing to show is that you can actually plug the D5-300 into one of the NAS units. So this is the F2-422, and it has a couple of USB slots on the back, and you can plug it in there and then go over to your interface, and under external storage I can see that one of the slots shows that there is a USB disk plugged in. Now I don't want to format it, and I'll show you how to eject it here in just a moment. And then what I do is go over here to the file manager, and when you open that, now I can see that the USB share here, that is the D500, right, or the D5-300. Those are the files that I'm seeing on it. So if I wanted to copy one of these, let's just say, for example, let's copy this one. So I do a copy. It says operation successful. I come over here to my main drive here, and then let's just open one of these and then hit a paste. Where's the paste? There's the paste. And you can see it copying that file right now from the D5-300 over to the F2-422. Now, normally you would probably have this plugged into your laptop or your main motherboard or your desktop. But this just shows you that you can actually go directly to one of the NAS units. Actually, you can go back and forth. And then when it comes time to eject it or remove it from the NAS, before you unplug the USB cable, just like on your main system, you need to eject it, just like you do any USB device. So you come over here and you select it. That enables the safe eject. You hit that, and then there's a little message up here at the top Do you want to eject it? Sure. Give it a moment and then it powers down. And now I can remove it. And here's a quick slide that recaps some of the testing that I just did. You can see on the left where I moved the data from my NAS units to the D5-300. It was a little slower, but that's to be expected when you go over a network. On the right, you can see those 3 tests are much higher. In fact, those are really in line with what the D5-300 is rated in terms of transfer speeds, read and write speeds. So you can see on the right, again, it's higher, and it is a DAS, or direct attached storage, so it's meant to be connected to a desktop or a laptop. And when you do, you can see the speeds are really where they should be. So the transfer speeds really are pretty good. Your mileage will of course vary depending upon what drives you use and what RAID mode and how you have it set up, and the health of your network, how robust it is, and what kind of data you're moving, things like that, the bandwidth that you're using on the network with other devices. So all of those things factor into your overall speed to and from this unit. Anyway, the only other thing I would say, would be nice if they had a handle or some provisions here to attach a handle to move it around, because with 5 drives in it, it's fairly heavy. But that's really the only thing. Alright, so overall, the D5-300 here from TerraMaster, it does everything it's supposed to do. The transfer rates were right there where they said they would be, even though I was using RAID 5 with 5 1 terabyte disks. So I had it set up a little different, but I still saw some pretty decent transfer speeds. It's great for content creation if you do a lot of photo and video, movie editing, and you need something to be able to connect to your main system and store the data. This would be just fine for that. The other thing I like about it is it supports multiple RAID modes, although I only really tested it in RAID 5. I'm sure the other RAID modes would be equally as impressive. It's got the smart fan capability back here to keep the unit cool. It has a 2-year warranty. The other thing I like, again, when you keep all of your data on here, you can disconnect it from your system very easily and store your data offline. So if you want to sort of keep it off the network, you do have that option. Pricing right now, this unit is $249 on Amazon. And if you already have some hard drives, then all you have to do is shell out the $249. But if you don't, then you'll need to buy some hard drives. Of course, it depends on what drives you buy, but if you populate all 5 bays, you'll have a chunk of money in that. But for what you get, the capabilities, I think this thing gets the Overclockers Club Editor's Choice Award. So this is Chris with Overclockers Club. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.